there. All right. We are live now. This is Indie Talk with Jesse and Jeryn. And in a short few minutes, we will have the world's greatest wrestling proctologist, Dr. Darin Davis. So we'll have him on and we'll do a little pre-show. So I'll give it over to Jesse.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to do some different formats tonight on the show. Jeryn will start the show off by asking the normal question that everyone knows of how Darin was trained. And then usually before the end of the interview, we do our word association. But after we find out how Darin was trained, then Jeryn's gonna sit back for a little bit, and I'll go through the list with Dr. Dave. What's his name again? Darin Davis.
Darin Davis.
Dr. Darin
Baker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I hope Darren's ready to play some word association. And Jeryn's and anyone else that doesn't know, long before MAW and AWF came along, there was Northern Premier Wrestling. I think PWA, which was Eddie Sharkey's deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a Steel Domain was in that era too. But Dr. Darin would probably know more about that. And there's also another league called World Television Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Mick Karch was part of Northern Premier too before he got in with MAW.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of Mick, we got him coming on October 28th.
That's right. If you guys haven't seen, we just posted that a few days ago, October 28th, 8:30 p.m. We got Mick Karch, the voice of Midwest Wrestling. So excited to have him on. He's got lots of stories from over 30 years of being in the business, from NWA, the Midwest here, and now MAW as a part of the commentary team for their TV shows. So yeah, lots of stories.
He had his body slam review too.
Yeah.
I think he was part of the AWA. I'm not really sure. I mean, he would. I think somehow part of it.
Yeah, I think it was AWA or NWA, but he's got the AWA Unleashed podcast, so I think it was AWA. So
and I think he might have done some work for World Wrestling Federation before it was WWE. I don't know if I'm mistaken or not. He might have done some stuff with WCW too.
Yeah. I remember doing an interview with Sting. I believe it was WCW or NWA.
Yeah.
So
I think they were when they were in Minnesota or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what else? Let me promote it here since they just put it out. So MAW has a show coming up. MAW Live at Nerd and Out Con 4. It will be back there Friday, October 7th. Door 7 p.m., bell 8 p.m. Tickets available now. Adults $15, children $8. Mayo Civic Center in Rochester, Minnesota. So this should be a fun event.
And the Indie Talk guys will be there in full force. So if you guys want to say hi or talk to us about the show, we'd be willing to answer questions. It'll be a fun time. This will be my second time going down for Nerdy Out. So I just go to the wrestling event itself. And then they're also then a week removed from Nerdy Out. They're going to be back in Faribault.
Yeah, the Faribault Legion and Chef Jeff will be there with Mitch Paradise wrecking
Oh,
havoc and doing his thing.
yep. And
Mm,
system will be there, so it's all good. So still don't know if I'm gonna be going to that one yet. It all depends on how the vacation shakes out and that.
mhm,
Yeah, so it should be a pretty interesting night at Nerdy Out.
mhm. Yeah.
Seeing Brad and So Fresh get in there.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, Brad, the owner of Nerd and Out Con, is gonna face So Fresh this year, so that should be pretty interesting to see how Brad faces off. We just had Brad on a number of weeks ago on our show, so go check that out in the archives. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and if anyone's coming down for the MAW show, I urge you to come back Saturday and meet some people and meet Brad as well.
hmm yeah, yeah, and all right, yeah, I want to plug my thing quick. So uh as some of you know, I'm also the Phenomenal Figures. I make custom figures for the Midwest stars. Been trying to sell a bunch for a while. Haven't been too successful. So if you guys are interested in any custom figures of the Midwest guys, as well as some old WWE customs that I have, just contact. I guess you can contact us through the Indie Talk messenger right here, and as well as the Jeryn PO Facebook page. I got figures like Dominic Guarini, Jack Spade, Sebastian Taylor, and then WWE guys like Pac, Cesaro, Ric Flair, Kurt Angle, and more. So go check that out. And right here, since I'm at my desk today, you got Bullet Bronson. He's gonna be going to Bullet Bronson himself. So this is just some of the work that I do in the Midwest for the figure side. So yeah.
How long did that take you to make Bullet?
Oh, when did I start it? I started it I think it's been 2 weeks now, so getting to the end of it now, almost there with that. So
And he's in
yeah.
by that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he'll be either at a show or if we meet in person at all. So yeah, it should
So
be pretty cool.
so when you and Bullet meet, does he wear the mask?
Yeah, he wears the new mask and everything now, and he's got pretty much the same gear as what this is. So he's the new Bullet Bronson. He doesn't have the mask, his old mask anymore. Matthias took it.
Yeah, Matthias, Pete King's investment.
Investment.
I know
Yeah,
Pete's gonna be watching, and he's gonna be making some smart aleck comments tonight. So we'll just
yeah.
have to take care of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. All right. No, what do you think? Should we let the doctor in?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute to grab something to drink here, and then we'll bring the good doctor in, and
The
not
doc,
Dr. Phil, people.
doc Phil, the doctor of thugonomics. John Cena's here, guys. Oh man. But yeah, we're gonna bring on the world's greatest wrestling proctologist, Dr. Darin Davis, retired independent professional wrestler and referee. So get to hear his story. Uh, and of course, you're just talking about you, Pete King in the comments says ready to stir the pot. So here we go.
For the podcast, though,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Pete King's already.
hey, I have one question for Pete. Pete, do you have any members of your team yet? Me and
Oh
Jeryn
yeah,
just
yeah. He's coming up.
me and Jeryn got just about got ours filled.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, the Survivor Series match.
Yeah,
Oh man.
let's bring the good doctor on, and maybe he can
Uh,
help. Doubt it, but maybe.
mhm. And WGW Tom Burdick says hi guys on Instagram. So
Hey Tom, how you doing?
hmm yeah, we're ready to. We want to hear news about your upcoming events. You keep hyping it up on your Facebook and
Yeah,
Facebook and a little bit of Instagram. You said events coming soon, so hopefully able to get some events out there so we can promote it.
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait till we can bring Pete back on the show and hear about his APW event that he has coming up. Even
Mhm.
though that he's a heel now, I mean, I think he'll take time to do that.
Yeah, there you go. And it was last Sunday I got to mention a little last Wednesday, but last Sunday got to meet WWE Hall of Famer and former WCW Vice President Eric Bischoff. So that was really cool.
Hey, Darren Corbin.
I met Darin Corbin. Oh man. All
So
right.
you
Well,
want to tell viewers what Bischoff was like?
Uh, yeah, but he was really nice. I asked him how the trip up or how the trip up to North Dakota was, and he's like very relaxing, very nice. And then in the ring, he had a heartfelt promo with the fans, and he's like, if it wasn't for these indie companies, there wouldn't be a WWE, WCW, AEW, or any of that. So he was really appreciative of being there.
So what's the story with him and Sylvester Fox? Did he join up with Sylvester, or was there? Because I saw
Oh yeah.
a poster with Matthias, the System, Sylvester, and Eric Bischoff. Are they a group now, or?
Well, I thought so. Sly Fox said they were a group. That they were a group because Sly inducted Eric Bischoff into the Minnesota Hall of Fame, but then Eric Bischoff said he didn't remember Sly Fox. So I don't. I don't know.
We'll
Yeah,
have to get I on the show, but we better get Darren on before he
yeah. All
shot
right.
or.
Let's admit him. He's in the waiting room. So
All right.
all right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey.
You hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Zoom just did an app update when I launched it, so
Oh, okay.
we're meant to come
Yeah.
back. But
hmm Yeah. It seems like you're coming in pretty good. So and video feed's good. So
okay,
yeah.
great.
All right. Yeah, we'll do a little reintroduction. So this is Indie Talk with Jesse and Jeryn featuring the world's greatest wrestling proctologist, Dr. Darin Davis. So we got the doctor here, guys. Yeah. What
How's
have
it
you
going, guys?
been up to?
Good.
Not too much. I ended up having to turn the heat on here at home because it was just like got a little too chilly. I didn't want to do it. I thought I could maybe hold out for a couple days, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Up here in Moorhead, it just all of a sudden got really cold. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a sweatshirt season already. So yeah. hmm Uh before we start, Bullet Bronson says, how is it going, Mr. Davis? So he's a North Dakota professional wrestler. So yeah.
Going good.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Mm-hmm. Start off with the beginner questions. So talk about how you got into watching wrestling.
I was probably like 15 before I was. So this was back. So I'm pretty old. So this is back when we didn't have remote controls on the TV. You had to go up and turn the dial. So your parents really had control over like what things you watched. And it wasn't until I went over to a friend's house and I don't remember if it was a Saturday morning or what, but they turned on the AWA and I was like, what is this? I think it was like the first thing I saw was like a cage match between Bob Backlund and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. or something like that. And Superfly went up to the top of the cage, and this was like, 1981 or something like that. So like nobody was coming off the top ropes, let alone like climbing to the top of a steel cage and doing a swan dive off of it.
Right.
So that was kind of how I got into it. And then I started, I begged my parents to get cable TV because there was like Georgia Championship Wrestling and stuff on TBS and all this other stuff, when I was looking in the program guide. So that's kind of how I got into it. Was my friend also did amateur wrestling in junior high and high school, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then talk about how you got originally started training to be a wrestler.
Yeah, so this was so I started training March of 1997, but around like 1995, 96, I was going up to a lot of local wrestling shows and stuff, and I got to talk to like some of the guys afterwards or whatever. And a lot of the shows, some of the shows were like, I went to the Northern Premier stuff, JB Trask and all those guys. And then PWA was Eddie Sharkey's promotion. And I actually dug out, so I have a program here. It's kind of a weird cover, but they had the Grace Sasuke from Japan wrestling. That's not him there, but it's this is him here. And I don't know if you can, how well you can see this, but this was the card that they had. So this was like December 96. Eddie Sharkey was referee on a lot of these matches. And then in the back of the program, besides this weird looking ad for a 1-900 number for wrestling, down at the bottom was an ad for Eddie Sharkey's training camp. And I blocked out the number because it might still be his phone number. I didn't want a bunch of people calling him. But then he also had this one, which had like the Road Warriors on it and stuff like that. And, do you want to be a professional wrestler or whatever? So I ended up talking to him at that show in December. And then it took me about 2.5 months to work up the nerve to actually call. So I called him and he talked to me for a little bit, and then he said, yeah, there's some guy from Wisconsin. We don't have any other trainees yet. Some guy from Wisconsin supposed to come over. So I'll let you know when he comes over, and then we'll put something together. I was like, okay. And then I hung up and he called me back maybe like 5 minutes later, and he's like, hey, why don't you come down to the gym and I'll show you how to take some bumps and bring some money with you.
There you go.
So he was like, hey, I got a live one here. So originally it was just like me and Eddie for like 2 weeks, and he normally didn't really get into the ring and take bumps because he was probably 60, 62 at that point. So it wasn't until we had a couple guys come down. There was Billy Blaze and Marty Hamilton, and then this other guy that was in a tag team. He was like Willie the Splash or something like that. And we were at a place called the Peacemaker Center in like, I think it was in North Minneapolis. It was like a American Indian type thing. And so there was they had like a boxing ring set up in one corner, and they had Eddie's wrestling ring set up in the other corner. So there was a bunch of like, it was like an after school program for some kids to go down and work doing boxing training and stuff. And then there was like me and Billy Blaze and some other guys. And so that kind of went on for a while. And then that place closed down suddenly, like the doors were just locked one day. And so Eddie said, oh, I'll figure something out here. And then he ended up teaming up with Terry Fox in, I think it was like probably like June of 97. And we did training camp out at Terry Fox's a place out in Coon Rapids. in the backyard there. And that's when we started to get more people in. It was like Robbie Thunder and his brother Mike, and ended up being like Prime Time and Hellraiser Guts, who went on to be Bam Neely in the WWE for a while.
Yep.
And then we were there like through the summer. And then the fall, it's like, what are we going to do? We can't be outside in the winter. So then Terry and Eddie moved to another place in St. Louis Park that had like a 2-car garage, and we had the ring in the garage in the winter. And they're running at that place for like another like 4.5 years or something like that. So, but yeah, there was, the people that ended up in that camp, there were some guys that wrestled like in Wisconsin and stuff, Mighty Angus and some other guys. But then it was like Mitch Paradise, Sean Davari, Austin Aries, Playboy Pete Huge, Big Daddy Hoofer. There was a guy, Helmut von Strauss, Justin Lee, Travis Sharp came out of there, Black Stallion. And then some of the lady wrestlers like Lacey and some of those Sheriff, Shifty, and the Sheriff and Shifty ended up, there was kind of a, my memory is not complete on it, but there was kind of a little bit of a split where we had Terry's camp, and then Sheriff and Shifty started a camp, and that became MPW. So they had a training camp and shows. And then kind of after I was kind of winding down, that's when I think a lot of the guys came, like Eric Cannon and Chris Jordan, Ryan Cruz. I think they all came out of that MPW camp, and a bunch of other guys that kind of wrestled around the area in like the early mid 2000s and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. We definitely know a lot of those guys. Have had a few of those guys on our show. We've had Sharp before, and Ryan Cruz, both great wrestlers, and that early 2000s is just a great time period of wrestling, just to hear stories about that from past guests that you've had. So yeah. And,
yeah, it really was, because it was like right that March of '97 was Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's where he was taken off. The Austin 316 was from March 16th when he won the King of the Ring or the
Right.
Yeah, and then he went into WrestleMania against Bret Hart, and that's where he ended up being this huge baby face, and the whole Attitude era was starting. So then like all of the local schools and everything, like everybody wanted wrestling as a fundraiser and stuff like that. So all of a sudden all these shows were being booked, and then there was like a PWA, and Sharky had Wrestle America 2000, and then Fox had MIW, which is still around, and Ed Hellier had originally St. Paul Championship Wrestling, and then SDW, and then there was like the AWF and French Lake, the FLWA, the High Rollers ran a bunch of shows. So there was like, there were like, it seemed like 7 or 8 shows a month for a while there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing about that program, Eddie Sharkey actually gave me one of those too. So it's really cool to have one of those programs of the old wrestling school he ran. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jesse.
All right, so what we're gonna do right now, Darin, is today I wrote down some names of wrestlers that we're gonna do something called word association. So we just want your thoughts are on these guys. So number 1, JB Trask.
So word association, like I'm supposed to come up with one word or just a short?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. He was kind of my idol when I was watching NPW, because he wasn't the biggest guy, but he would be, he would a lot of times just steal the show. So, yeah, this is more than a word, but like some of the guys that, you know, some of the classic matches I think of from that time are JB against Horace the Psychopath, Lenny Lane, Jerry Lynn. Awesome matches with Jerry Lynn. So yeah, I got to wrestle him one time and the match was not great. So that was kind of a disappointment for me. It wasn't him. It was just I probably was too nervous. But
Yeah.
And speaking of Jerry Lynn, he's the next guy on the list.
oh yeah, yeah, he was one of the guys that really like got me to go out to the local shows.
Mm-hmm.
Just to like, oh, Jerry Lynn. I drove out to Middle Wisconsin sometimes and stuff like that. Just like, oh, he's booked on a card. Okay, I'll be there. Nicest guy too.
Yes, very nice. The Hater.
The Hater, yeah. The Hater and the Punisher were tag team. And I wrestled the Hater a couple times. And one time was like, I thought he was maybe a no-show because I had been at the show for like an hour and I hadn't seen him. And they said, oh, he's at the bar. He's been at the bar the whole time. Like, oh, great. So that was a lot of fun. I got a garbage can over my head and then he started like pounding on the garbage can and stuff like that. But yeah, he's one of the big names from that time too.
Yes. Billy Blaze.
Billy Blaze was the first person to get in the ring with me for training. And I don't know if I should tell this story. Well, that's fine. So back in the day, you know, there wasn't really the internet, but people would read those wrestling sheets like the Torch and stuff like that, you know, the inside of the business. So all my friends like knew about the inside of the business, you know, all the stuff, you know. But Billy had me in an arm bar and he said, you know, if I move your elbow like an inch, I could break your arm. If you ever tell anybody about the details of the business, I will break your arm. And I'm just thinking like, you already know. I'm like, oh no. So and he wasn't being mean about it. He was being really protective because there's a lot of guys that came before us that would do anything to keep the secret, you know. They'd go to jail if they had to you know, make everybody believe it. So I didn't fault them for that, but that's I can't help thinking about that when you say Billy Blaze.
Horace the Psychopath.
Another guy, yeah, between him and JB Trask and there was a Kamikaze Kid, not Sean Waltman, but a different guy. He'd wrestle Lenny Lane and stuff, and just like, you know, he's going through tables, and it was like hardcore matches before there were hardcore matches. Yeah.
Dan Jesser.
Dan Jesser, yeah, he was another guy around like 95 or whatever. He was really nice to me when I first started. The first show, he was on the first show that I was on. I wrestled the Masked Jungle Fighter, I think. But yeah, he was always, except he, sometimes he would, he would kind of talk really loud in the ring. Things that the audience wasn't supposed to hear. So, yeah.
Business.
All right. Jesse Henning.
Jesse Henning. I think I saw him a couple times live. Never got a chance to talk to him. I don't know what to say about him other than I think he was kind of in the shadow of his dad. you know,
Right.
which is really hard to get out of.
Right.
Mhm.
Lenny Lane.
Lenny Lane, yeah, he was one of the first guys I talked to before I got into wrestling training. I talked to him at the shows and stuff, and he grew up in Duluth, and I'm from like Superior across the bridge. But he's another guy where if he was on a show, I'd go and drive out to see him, because he was one of the best in the area for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The Jokester.
The jokester, also known as Marty Hamilton. So
Yep.
he helped train me kind of in the beginning a little bit. He was coming down to camp.
Mhm.
He asked to wrestle me at a show one time when I wasn't booked, and we wrestled, but I don't like having to sell silly string. That is, a lot of times that was his finish. He'd spray you with the silly string and then pin you, and I'm like, oh my God. I felt like it's like, okay, you helped me out at camp and stuff, and I guess there aren't too many people here, so. But yeah, it's not the best finish. You don't want to fall to that one.
Mhm.
Mortimer Plumtree.
Yeah. So he was a manager for Lenny Lane, and I think also JV Trask. And he did a lot of like color commentary and stuff like that. A real shy guy in person. Didn't really get a chance to really know him as a person, but as a character, I loved it.
Mhm. Yeah, he was one of the. He was a funny guy.
Yeah.
I had no issues with Mortimer whatsoever. Mick Karch.
Mick Karch, he helped get my doctor gimmick over, besides being, a big, part of the AWA and the indie wrestling scene. He got it over with an interview I did with him the first time I did the doctor gimmick.
Mhm.
And then he had the Slick Mix Body Slam review, and then there was one other show, I forget what the name of it. It was a similar thing, Pro Wrestling Today or something like that. But he would, he'd do play by play for matches that I had, and kind of put me over on TV and stuff. So that really helped out. I really appreciated that.
The Chi-Town Thug.
Chi-Town Thug. I actually got to see him about a month ago, because Hoofer had a 50th birthday party.
Mhm.
So Chi-Town and Scotty Zappa were over for that. But yeah, he was always a good guy. I wrestled him a couple of tag teams, and then we did a singles match one time. But yeah, he was the guy I always look forward to seeing when I go to a show. And he was actually I think he started a couple years before me, but he is on this card.
Mhm.
I'm not sure who Billy Fargo, that name doesn't ring a bell, but he was on that. Yeah, but that was yeah, he's always been a good guy. So
Red Tyler.
Red Tyler, he came down to Eddie and Terry's camp a few times and worked out with the guys. And he's another quiet guy. I wrestled him one time, I think it was Barron, Wisconsin. And he used to eat like cans of tuna fish before the match.
Oh,
But yeah, it's just, I guess it's, easy to carry around with you and stuff. But
yeah.
I used to watch him on TV all the time, because he would kind of do those a lot of times, like for the WWE, be on some of the squash
Mhm.
matches and stuff when they do
Yeah.
local. But as a wrestler, when I actually got to see him like on the indie scene, longer matches, I was like, oh, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mass professor.
The mass professor. I didn't really know. I didn't really know the mass professor.
Mhm.
But people used to always mention him to me. When they wanted, first people were wanting me to do some kind of like professor or scientist gimmick, and they'd talk about the mass professor, but I don't think I ever saw him wrestle or met him.
Okay. Charlie Norris.
Charlie Norris and Sam Houston helped train us that first summer that we were in Coon Rapids. And he would like watch us do matches and critique them and come in the ring and do some stuff. You don't want to get chopped by him though. Oh my God. You just like, yeah, I mean, your skin is almost like tearing off, but yeah, he's over the years, like he would promote promote shows at the American Indian Center.
Mhm.
And I think pretty much every one of those shows he had me booked on there. So I really appreciated that. I saw the interview that you guys did with him. I think it was back like 6 months ago or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad he's still got the energy today that he did back then. So
Yeah.
Yeah. We're actually good friends with him, and he refereed a match back in May. And I was like,
oh, he did?
Yeah, he refereed a match. It was two wrestlers, Leonard Literacy versus Crixus, and both of them had or Literacy had Bob Orton in his corner, and Crixus had Wild Bill Irwin. So
oh, okay.
an entertaining match. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, he's doing really good. So all right.
The Mass Jungle Fighter.
Mass Jungle Fighter, my first match, first professional match. I think we were in Richmond, New Richmond, Wisconsin or something. Bachwinkle was there signing autographs for some promotion, and yeah, he reminds me of the Serbian Assassin and whatever other. I'm trying to think of the Mass Jungle Fighter, Serbian Assassin. Kind of looks a little bit like Terry Fox.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's him.
But maybe it's his brother or something.
It could be.
There you go.
Eddie
Sharkey. Yeah. Eddie was a guy that people look to, hey, how was that, Eddie? And he wasn't cruel about it, but he'd say like, that's not your move. You go and show him something in the ring, he's like, that's not your move. But yeah, he wouldn't have to look. He could tell if you took a good bump just from the sound. And he'd be like, oh, you knocked the wind out of yourself, didn't you? And the guy's like, it's like, yeah, I could tell. But yeah, I saw him at a SDW show, I think the last time. But yeah, he's but him and Terry Fox, yeah, I owe them a lot for training me.
Yeah.
Terry was, like some other people said, Terry's the one that actually got in the ring and worked with you. Eddie was more talk to you about psychology and stuff like that, and then just kind of getting his approval was a big deal. If he liked something or said you did a good job at the show or something like that, that was you kind of lived for that.
Yeah. Referee Mike Diamond. I knew we were going to chuckle about this one.
Yeah. So the first show that I was on, Mike Diamond was, I think, the only referee. And then the jungle fighter was upset about something and he kind of clocked him in the ring, and then the promoter was like, we got another match coming up, what are we gonna do, we only got one ref. So they took a bunch of gauze and wrapped it around his head and then sent him back out there.
Oh man.
Told him to look a little dazed when he came out. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was, like I've run into him a couple of times outside of wrestling, and it's like I didn't recognize him at first without the striped shirt on, because he looked very good. He had like a leather jacket and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know, that guy always makes me laugh when I think of it.
Oh man. I'll throw you back out. You're fine. Here you go.
Yeah, get back out there and look hurt.
Yeah, just a look here. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Sauk Center, Minnesota, the Coliseum.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if I was actually wrestling out there, or if I just went out to see the show. But sometimes I'd go to, so this was, back in the days where there weren't cell phones and stuff. So
Right.
if you were at a show and you weren't booked, the promoter would tell you get there at least an hour and a half before. And if they'd be looking around and there's somebody not there, they have no idea if they're on their way or anything. So then they would point to me or somebody else and like, hey, you got your gear? And like, yeah. Okay, you're in a match in like 15 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I think I was only out there once. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Daddy Zappa.
Scotty Zappa. Yeah, I first saw him, his first gimmick, he was the Mangler.
Yep.
He was under a mask.
Yep.
And then I think it was like Scotty Z or something that he went to from there. But yeah, he was, I was in at least one tag team with him, and then we did a singles match in Big Lake, I think. And he put me over there, and he didn't have to.
Right.
It was really like, I didn't even know what was happening, to be honest. I'm like, wait a minute, I knew what the finish was, and then it wasn't until we were in it that I realized I was winning. I'm not kidding you.
oh yeah.
It was like, small package, okay. 1, 2, 3. Hey, wait a minute. But
yeah.
and I'm like, I better scoot out of the ring because he was the heel. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
but
There you go.
yeah, always a nice guy. There's a lot of a lot of the guys are generally nice guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And one more name, Aaron Corbin.
Aaron Corbin. Yeah, I kind of was just kind of exiting the business around the time that he was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really get to know him much, like when he was training and stuff. It was more later when I was refereeing and I'd show up at some of the shows. But yeah, he's a guy that can really steal the show, and he can, I like a week apart be the biggest heel at one show and the biggest face at the other one. And I swear he's doing the same gimmick and the same stuff, but it's just a little bit different, just to kind of turn the audience one way or another. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been a couple shows he's been like the biggest baby face, and then now he's kind of been back to the heel and doing the roasting kids and women of the town and all that. So
Yeah.
he did a pretty good job of that. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not seeing too many comments, but guys, if you got any questions or comments, we got the world's greatest wrestling proctologist, Dr. Darin Davis. So he wants to answer your questions. Any comments or questions you guys got, answer them in the Facebook comment section, or as well as the Instagram as well. So yeah. What was your finishing and signature move back then?
When I first started, I was just Darin Davis, and I was a face, and I just kind of had black like tank top and stuff on, and I think I was doing I'm not even sure what I wasn't winning any matches, so I didn't have to worry about a finish. At the
There you go.
beginning, it was usually like small package or, crossbody or something like that, where I sort of like make a surprise comeback thing. And then at some point I was watching, I started watching a lot of Japanese tapes, and we used to, no internet back then, so you
Yeah.
had to do tape trades with people. So you'd actually mail VHS tapes. You'd mail
Yeah.
a tape to somebody with something that they wanted, and they'd mail you back a tape with something else. So I was watching this Japanese wrestling, and they had the Dragon Sleeper that Ultimo Dragon did, I think, in WCW. So I started using that for a while. And then when I got the doctor gimmick, then I did start doing the perfect plex, the cradle suplex, but I called it the procto plex just to kind of,
Yeah.
because I had to.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so then that's basically what I did the most of, probably. But one of the things with something like that, when you're picking a move, it's like you're not really thinking about, what if I'm in the ring with a really huge guy? I can't pick him up in that, so
Yeah.
you're not going to see the so what kind of became the lead up to the finish was the glove spot, where I get somebody over the second rope, do like a drop toe hold, so they get caught on their throat, like over the second rope, and then I pull out the rubber glove
Oh
and
yeah.
I go like I'm going to give them the exam. So then after that kind of took hold, then it didn't matter so much what my finish was, because that was kind of like the high point, like right toward the end of the match, and then the finish was just kind of the conclusion.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would try to do the proctoplex if I could. Sometimes it's a move that you can kind of like reverse another move and get somebody into it real quick, and then just boom, it's done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In the Facebook comments right here, All Pro Wrestling owner Pete King says, have you ever wrestled for Jim Gagnon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin?
No, I've never wrestled for Jim. No, Claire. I know quite a few other guys did back then, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse?
I was just looking at my list. I left one name off there. Kenny J. What's your thoughts on Kenny?
Kenny J.
Oh,
Yeah, I still see him coming out to shows, which is great. I wrestled him when he was 63 years old in
yeah.
Buffalo at the ice arena or whatever. And then another time, it was a tag match, me and Scotty Zapp against Kenny J and Zoomhoff.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was just like, he was, my understanding is he came up through the carnivals the same way that Eddie did, where some of that was like, you would just wrestle people from the crowd, and you got paid by how many people you wrestled or whatever. And so, like, legitimate tough guy. And he was, yeah, I mean, even at 63, when you'd block up with him, it was just like, tight, like solid.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, what did I get myself into? I thought this was gonna be.
Yeah. Forget. Yeah, Eddie did the carnivals too. He was talking to me about that one time. So it's cool how he was able to do that and then transition to wrestling and go from there. So
Yeah.
We got Ricky Snyder in the Facebook comments. He says, "Hey guys," so shout out to you there, Ricky. Ricky Bobby. No.
Ricky.
Uh, you ain't first, you're last, guys. What made you decide to make your wrestling return in 2015?
When I left, I felt like it's probably a longer story, but I felt like I wasn't quite done yet. Like there was still it wasn't the final chapter, I guess. But I didn't know if I would come back. I thought maybe it'd just be refereeing. And then Terry started a camp up again in the Coon Rapids location where I first trained back in '97. And he had Scott Story, Stonehenge. I'm trying to think of what Tim's ring name was. I'll think of it in a second. But the guy that Stonehenge tagged with before he tagged with Lore, they were like the MIW tag team champions, and I'm blanking on what his ring name was, but and then there was like Butterman, he was training, and JD Bandit. So that was all at Terry's, and I went down there a few times, and then just like just kind of nostalgia, and then like, hey, why don't I just come in and like help out a little bit? Kind of got into it a little bit, and then around October or so of that year, so that was 2014, Terry had an idea of an angle to do at the MIW show in December with Pete Huge, because Pete had every belt in MIW except for there used to be a MIW TV title. And I had the TV title for like 15 months or something like that. From like September 2000 to December 2001. And he said, hey, why don't we have Pete challenge you? Because you were the last title holder. I didn't tell him that I lost K-Train. And so I wasn't really the last title holder. I just like, okay, what's your idea? So he was thinking that Pete would challenge me to win that belt because it was the only belt he hadn't had. And we ended up doing that in December. And then Chris Jordan was helping Terry or doing the booking at MIW for Terry. And Jordan said, hey, Rob Justice wants to wrestle you in January. You want to do it? I was like, yeah, sure. And then I just kept like that match. I ended up having like 6 or 7 more matches. So it kind of felt like the right time to come back, just because I couldn't really pass up getting in the ring with Pete again. And it was I forget when he had to retire. I think it was the year after that, but yeah, I'm really, I was as far as like wrestling shape, I wasn't really ready, so it wasn't the greatest match in the world. But now that I think back of it, like that was a huge, that would have been a huge missed opportunity if I wouldn't have done it. And
definitely. Speaking of Pete Huge, I think we're almost on the anniversary of his passing from last year. What did Pete Huge mean to you when you guys were in the business?
He started a little bit after, so in Terry and Sharky's camp. He started a little bit after Hoofer did, and those guys became real good friends. But he was kind of like everybody's little brother kind of when he started, because he was, I mean, I was quite a bit older than him, but I think he was like maybe 17 or maybe 18 when he started, somewhere around there. But yeah, it was just, we'd go to wrestling camp like 3 days a week, and then we'd be on a lot of the shows and stuff. So we kind of, all of us as a group would kind of hang out. And then even after I got out of the business, like he would send me, like, sometimes leave comments on I've had a website since like 1999 or something, drdarindavis.com. He would leave messages sometimes, hey, how you doing, and stuff like that. And then when I started refereeing again, I'd see him, and when I go to like MIW shows, I always like look forward to seeing Pete there. He'd get up out of his chair as soon as I walked in the room. He'd get up out of his chair, walk across the room, shake my hand, ask me how I am. Didn't matter if he was in the middle of talking to somebody or if he was like whatever he was doing. There've been a few guys that have done that, but yeah.
Mhm.
And then just, still can't really believe that he's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I heard he passed and then started hearing all this news about who he was, I kind of wish I would have gotten to see him wrestle and gotten into independent wrestling a lot sooner. So, but yeah, he seemed like a great guy from what I've heard of, and I wish I would have got to see him wrestle. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot of video out there, so at least you get to see his public wrestling personality, which is sort of him like turned up to 11 or 50 or 100 or whatever. But I also learned a lot about him at his celebration of life, just from hearing. I mean, he had people, like pretty much every job he ever worked for, he had people showing up from that, and just, saying how much he cared about other people, how much he helped out other people that he didn't even know. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with the 1 year anniversary, it's still unbelievable that he's gone, but he's always with us, always with the wrestling community. So
Yeah.
yeah. Jesse?
So, Darin, what was when did everybody know that Northern Premier Wrestling was gonna shut down?
Do you mean MPW, the one that the sheriff ran?
No, the one that JB Trask ran,
Oh.
Northern Premier.
I don't really know. I never worked for Northern Premier. I think they might have already been they might have been shut down by the time I was actually out of training camp.
Okay.
I think it was when somebody said he's selling the ring.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty final, because
Yeah.
But and then I think he was also, from what I remember, he was working more for, I think JB was working mainly for himself when he was running NPW, and not doing a lot of outside work for other promotions.
Right.
And then he started doing work for other promotions, but I don't remember if it was before or after that he shut it down. But yeah.
Looking in the Facebook comments here, Ricky Snyder says, ask him if he still thinks he has what it takes at his age to get the job done.
Which
Oh, man.
job? Yeah.
Yeah, the rest. Mm.
Yeah,
One
that's a good
more.
question. I think it's,
Mm.
I mean, there's a difference between being in ring shape and being just in shape. And
Yeah.
even if you do cardio and do some strength training and stuff,
Mhm.
when you get in the ring, it's a different, it's the same muscles, but you're working them in a different way.
Mhm.
So I think I would have to really, I mean, definitely like usually, so if there's a reason for somebody to come back for a match or whatever, typically like they'll set up a tag team so that you can be out of the ring
Yeah.
whenever
Yeah.
you need to. And a lot of times it's like if it's the guy that everybody came to see, which is not me, but they'll let that guy have the hot tag at the end. So his partner is the one that stays in the ring and gets pounded for 3/4 of the match. So I could be the guy standing outside the ring for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's just I don't want to, I know there's some people that have come back and
Mhm.
but they don't really want to take a bump or they can't take a bump or whatever, and they'll kind of like go through the motions. But I don't, if I had to do that, I wouldn't really want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that works fine for guys that can go around the country and you know, we're big, you know, name in the business and stuff, but there's plenty of other guys that are trying to get work, and I don't feel like I should be taking their spot on a card unless it absolutely made sense for whatever we're trying to do, an angle or something, or you know, maybe if somebody doesn't show up. And I still bring my ref gear and my wrestling gear every time I go to a show. It's
Oh, you
out in the car, just
Mhm.
because that was one of the like the first week we were trained, that was mainly Terry kind of pushed into us, like, bring your gear, you never know when you're going to need it, any show you go to. And that just stuck with me. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would not be able to leave the house without putting that in my trunk. I would not feel right about doing that. It's
Yeah.
just so pounded into me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen I see a lot of wrestlers just like mainly today it's like the academy wrestlers. They're trained by Ken Anderson. They usually go to a show and just watch from the stands and just in case they ever need help with anything or need help with
Yeah,
an
and
extra guy or anything. So
those guys will, I mean, that the academy um makes me think of the camp that I came out of, where at one point we actually had like 17 people in there, which was way too many. Like we had one ring. You can do a bunch of drills and stuff and guys can work outside, but what I was going to say was that those guys will show up, they'll help guys set the ring up, take it down, and they're not even on the show. They're not asking, you know, for money or anything as far as I know. They just like, this is how you pay your dues. And I think that was, I don't know if it was Ken or I know Davari was there in the early days, you know, kind of helping out too with Ken. But
yeah.
somebody kind of, you know, nobody from my impression, nobody that comes out of the academy is expecting to just be like, we're going to put you on the show, you know. They're not expecting anything. They're, from my view of it, it seems like they feel like they need to earn their way onto a promoter's show, and then when they're on it, they're gonna promote it like on their socials. They're gonna show up on time. They're gonna, you know, do great. Not be an ass in the locker room. Not, you know, be, you know, do the best that they can, and then hope, you know, that that's going to pay off for, you know, wanting them to come back. So I really like all of the guys that I met out of the academy. I was reffing a match that was Riley Jackson's first match. He didn't even have gear yet. He had to borrow some gear and stuff. But you know, to see him go from that to like, you know, getting the confidence and everything. And there's other guys that I've seen, you know, come up through the academy and stuff, and and guys that even guys that trained with other people that went into the academy to get like more training and stuff like that. That's, I mean, that's really what we need. That makes me feel good about the local scene in the future. I think it was really great the time that I went through, but I think it can still be really great right now when you have people like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Ricky Snyder says he wants me to thank you for getting that question answered. So glad we could do that, Ricky. And our good buddy, the real Drago, says this is a very interesting interview, and I think it is. We're getting a lot of stuff covered about the early 2000s and NPW and MCW and all that, so it's really cool.
Yeah,
And
back before a lot of your audience was born, probably.
yeah. Was it the Urago? He trained in like 2017, so he's he's a very young, and he's a big young muscle guy. So yeah. And I was scrolling through one of the older comments. P King says, "Do you know superstar Steve Stardom?"
I do. He actually, I think he trained with somebody before, but he was down training at Terry's camp. I think we weren't in Coon Rapids. I think we were maybe at the St. Louis Park one. But yeah, I wrestled him at least once. I don't remember where we were, but and then he would I'd see him at shows and stuff, and then I saw him a few years ago. I reffed at a place up in Ham Lake, and he showed up at the show, and he was like, you know, came in and he was like, "Hey, can I go back?" And I don't really know the promoter, but I'd like to, you know, say hi to some of the guys. And like, yeah, come on back, let's go in. And there's some of the people that he knew from back in the day and stuff. And yeah, so it was, it was good to see him. Yeah, he's still going. A lot of the, like, Paradise is still going, Stallion's still going. Yeah,
Corbin's still going, and
Corbin's still going. Cannon is, I saw he just had his 20th anniversary, I think, of wrestling, was like yesterday or something. I saw him some post. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I guess that was 20 years ago.
Yeah. And Corbin's best friend, Cody O'Neill, they were a tag team back in the day, and he just came back for one match recently. So
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, he's real hoping to go to that, but then of course I had to get COVID around that time, so I had to skip out on that. I'm like, dang it, I wanted to see him because we've had him on the show a couple of times, and he seems like a good guy, getting to know him, and just never got to see him. So yeah. And then Jesse, he had a whole nother thing going on. He was at the show, but you want to talk about how that happened, Jesse?
Yeah, I went to the MAW show thinking I was gonna get in, but it didn't happen. So I went and got some fair food, and then I just headed home. I wasn't gonna try to fight the crowd to get in there, and I mean, there'll be other shows.
Yeah, I guess it was a packed crowd in a very small area, so it
Oh,
Okay.
wasn't the best
Oh.
for wrestling. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or yeah, I'll let you go, Jesse, with the question.
So, do you think that Sterling Bond is unhinged, or do you think it's just a gimmick that he is playing?
I have no idea.
We had him on the
Yeah,
show, and it's a mystery.
it's a very big mystery. Seems to play it as a good character, but I don't know if I don't know. He's an interesting person. So.
I almost don't want to know. You know, it's kind of like the
Mm,
magician telling you that. I like that, you know, so we were kind of talking about the thing about, you know, keeping quiet about the business and stuff like that, you know,
mm,
back in the day. That was definitely before my time. You know, I remember seeing a documentary about feud between Jerry Lawler and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert down in Memphis, where they do these TV tapings and stuff, and Gilbert actually he hit Jerry
Mhm.
Lawler with his car on
Yep.
camera. He went like over the hood, off the windshield or whatever. And Gilbert said in a later like shoot interview back, but later when like it was okay to do that he would have gone to jail before admitting that it was part of the angle.
Mhm.
So there's guys that, you know, and now we're sort of like, you know, everybody's like really open about it, like everywhere. And
yeah.
I do kind of like it where sometimes you don't know, like there are people that like, is that person really like that? Or they're just in character
Right.
whenever I see them. Like
Yeah.
all the time, you know, even backstage or whatever. So I kind of, you know, there's a little bit of mystery sometimes. Not everything has to be like wide open, you know, it
Right.
kind of makes it more interesting sometimes. Everything was closed up, then what became interesting was when people would try to figure out if something was a shoot or whatever, like Brian Pillman or, you know, all that stuff. When he was doing his stuff, is like, is this really, oh, did you hear him? He said Booker Man on live TV. That must have been a shoot because he would never say that. Nobody knows what that means except us insiders and stuff. And then
Yeah.
everything's sort of like all wide open and everybody's open about everything and hanging out at the bar. The heels and the faces are hanging out at the bar after or whatever.
Mhm.
To where like to make things interesting again, you kind of have to go the other direction and like, well, I know this stuff is all like staged and everything, except that match number 3, I could tell those guys were really going at each other. They must hate each other. So I've actually heard people like be convinced that a particular match or 2 particular wrestlers, like, no, those guys really hate each other, but the rest of this stuff is, you know, just for show.
Mhm.
And I think that's really cool. So anybody that wants to at least make me think or make me doubt whether it's real or fake or whatever,
Mhm.
I'm all for that. That kind of makes it interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Kayfabe is kind of dead nowadays. I mean, a lot of these new guys, they usually just post whatever and get over, or well, they just usually post whatever about wrestling and like training and stuff. Like I'm sure people would never really discuss training back then with fans or anything, but it's good and bad in some ways. So yeah.
No, and they wouldn't do that. And I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a thought there that just kind of like dropped off. I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked to Eddie Sharkey about that, and he's like, back then we'd like, if we like told anybody about the business, it'd be like the end of us or anything, and our
Oh
promoters
yeah.
would get mad at us and everything. So
The
yeah.
thing that changed it for me, I think, was when I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was like early 90s or something, when WWE Vince McMahon admitted, I think in court in New Jersey or something, that the matches were prearranged because they couldn't go to Jersey because wrestling was part of the Wrestling and Boxing Commission control. And
Oh,
they would have to, if you're part of that, they specify, from my understanding, I might have this wrong, but they specify things about like, you need to have, like you need to have an official timekeeper that's, maybe part of a union or something. You need to have a doctor on staff. You need to pay dues to this, you need to do that. And they couldn't run there. So he actually then admitted that, he admitted about the business, like in a legal proceeding that is, public, so that they could run in New Jersey. And then it's like, well, okay, if he opened it up, then I guess, that was kind of the beginning there, I think.
yeah. Vince McMahon exposes the business. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess speaking of Vince McMahon, we've asked a couple people about this, but he's well, from what we know of, he's officially retired. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really watched WWE for a few years. I think
Oh yeah.
I did catch it once in a while recently, and it was he's kind of been the figurehead there and everything, but I think I don't know if I have much of an opinion about it, but it's
Yeah.
without getting into all the scandal part of it.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but I mean, at some point everybody steps down, so
Mhm.
it's I don't know if there's a better time for him to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I remember when all this stuff was coming out, and then they announced that WWE is going to the Target Center again for SmackDown, and then they announced that Vince McMahon was going to open the show. Everyone was going to be like, "Was he going to talk about it? Is he going to talk about it?" He comes out, just says, then, now, forever, and ever and ever," and then just
Okay.
leaves. He never covered any of his stuff, obviously, because he probably shouldn't, but
Right.
everyone was like really tuned in to if he was going to say anything. So that was pretty interesting.
I mean, he was, back in the day, he was a big reason why Austin got over, because that whole angle, you know, stick it to the boss and all the stuff that he did to him,
Yeah.
like pull him out of the hospital bed and
Mhm.
all that other stuff. They've used him a few times for when they want somebody to get over as a baby. So he definitely contributed to that. And I don't know, there could be a lot of debate about what he's done for the business one way or another, with the way the WWE and, points in history where that was like the only big promotion that you could work for. They kind of, had the upper hand on a lot of the wrestlers, where it's like didn't really have a lot of options and stuff. But there's definitely pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jesse?
I have one more question. So, who is your favorite independent superstar today?
I mean, if I had to just say something without thinking, I'd say maybe Ryan Cruz.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
he popped into my head. I've grown to, well, maybe grown's not the right word, but as I've transitioned into reffing
Mhm.
more matches, I have a better appreciation for how good some of these guys really are. Because I get to see what happens in the ring, but what, you know, I'm trying to I don't know how detailed I want to get, but I'm sort of seeing like all the way from an idea in the locker room to the final match in the ring, including changing things based on the crowd reaction
Mhm.
completely seamlessly, and keeping the story, beginning, middle, and end of the match still intact.
Mhm.
That I don't think I was ever able to do. Well, I know that I was never at Ryan's level or Eric Cannon or some of those guys, but it's just amazing to see, and it's one of those things that I wish everybody could experience, because it's hard to describe. That it's, you know, improv combined with, you know, like storytelling and making sure that you get in whatever the promoter is trying to communicate, because it may affect like storylines and upcoming shows and stuff like that. And then on top of it being completely entertaining to where you're not even thinking about all that other stuff. So I think I think, you know, Craven Knight, guys like that, just unbelievable. Arya
Yep.
Davari, Eric Cannon, but Cruz was the first guy that popped in my head. So
yeah. When's the next show you'll referee at?
I'm not booked on anything. I was probably going to check out the MIW show on the 8th in Chanhassen, because I really like that building, the Legion over there. And then yeah, sometimes I get a chance to ref. I actually had a couple opportunities in the last month, but I was out of town both weekends. It was like a short notice, somebody got sick type of thing. So unfortunately we kind of ended up crossing paths there, but I used to fill in a lot for one of the refs. I don't know. I won't mention his name, but there a guy that would sometimes have to have a change of plans or something a couple days before. So and then some of the promoters called me, and then it got to the point where he would just call me directly and say, hey, I'm going to have to back out of the show. Can you work it? And then I have somebody to tell them is going to show up. So that was going for a while, but yeah, I haven't done anything since like February, I think.
Oh, it's been a bit. Okay. Yeah. So it's just whenever you get the chance, you'll referee in the area, or
yeah, I think I'm not the backup or the backup. I'm like somewhere down the list.
somewhere. Yeah.
And now it's like everybody's got cell phones, so even if I show up and somebody else like had to back out, the promoter already knew it like 2 hours before and called somebody else. So
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Usually I end up doing a run-in or not a run-in, but a save. They'll have all the refs come out, and then whoever's in the locker room come out and break up a fight or something. So that was like the last thing I did in Chanhassen, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Huh.
So it was, yeah, it was, I think it was Black Stallion, but he was in his other gimmick,
The
Chadwick. Yeah, against
third.
Leonidas. There was kind of a beatdown in the ring, and people came out, and then we had to go in and kind of separate it and stuff. So I just happened to be there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm hoping at one of these shows. I've not in the area right now, but I have checked out MAW and know what they're doing, and hopefully I can go to more MAW shows if you're there, or anywhere else if you decide to get called up to do something or decide to be there. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it was awesome to talk to you. We got a lot covered just about your career and refereeing, and Pete Huge. We got to pay homage to him with the
Yeah.
1 year anniversary. So it was definitely a very special show. So yeah. Mhm.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Jesse, you want to close out?
So, yeah, this has been Indie Talk for Friday night. And once again, let's plug the show for Tuesday. We got Tom Rocky Stone coming on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. All right. But yeah, thank you again, and have a nice night, Darin.
All right. You guys have a nice night too. See ya.
Yeah.
All right, fans, we are logging out in a couple seconds.